Right, YouTube channel King Nazareth. Uh, Days, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Yeah, we're in 2023 now. So, I should probably talk about the things I've been up to ever since I finished God of War 5, God of War Ragnarok. I pretty much been just busy with life, just doing my job, hanging out with family. I was considering doing Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, doing a playthrough on that, and eventually I will get to it. But right now I'm waiting for um, waiting on a few things to be taken care of before I do something like that. So in the meantime, I'm just playing the PS5 version of Skyrim. Whether I and I'm just like trying to get back to where my character was on the PS4 version because there was ever since that update there was a creation content that conflicted with the mod that I was using, uh, and I deleted it because it was kind of like no point because that messed up a huge chunk of my game. Which the ironic part was that there was already a mod to help fix the situation, so I didn't have to. Hindsight is 2020. Uh, I've also been going through my Bible and trying to bring myself closer to God. I'm still struggling with things, some of my vices, and the way the world is now isn't exactly making things better. But I just thank God that I'm not who I used to be. I mean, that's all. I mean, that's the best we can hope for while we're in spiritual growth. That He's helping us be better than who we used to be. But to the main topic of this video, I you know I was gonna I was just gonna let this. I already said my piece about this elsewhere, and I was just gonna let this go. But I feel like it perfectly illustrates why I feel about this way about the comic book industry. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Dan Slott, a rather mediocre to abysmal writer, whose most notable works were his runs on Spider-Man that lasted about like 10 or so years. And honestly, like I said, it was mediocre to abysmal. I personally was not a fan of things like Spider-Man 700, Superior Spider-Man, though arguably those two were at best divisive and at worst considered one of the worst things to happen to Spider-Man since One More Day. He also did his rendition of a Clone Saga, which that was a brilliant idea. Take one of Spider-Man's worst storylines and do it again. And apparently they're going to do that with Gwen Stacy. Um, and he just did a lot of other things. He made Spider-Man an atheist, which even though Spider-Man had been a Protestant for decades, I don't know if they fixed that, but I'm hoping they did. Uh, but you get my point. He's done a lot. He's not the best writer. I mean, he also he was also the creative consultant for that mediocre. No, I'm not going to say mediocre. It was a terrible and bland Marvel Spider-Man the 2017 show. It was pretty like the poor man's version of Spectacular Spider-Man, with its pseudo pseudo intellectual science, uh, poor portrayal of the characters, uh, cheap and horrendous animation. And the only thing positive I can think, the only positive thing I can think of he's done was be a creative consultant for the 2018 Insomniac Spider-Man game. And even then, I say that's more due to Insomniac than Dan Slott, because I feel like there were more writers that understood his character than he did. And even then, that game still has some issues that I don't exactly sit well with. But what is he doing now? Well, he's doing what he does best, going on social media and creating a huge tirade. In this case, being about the MCU She-Hulk and complaining that a lot of fans didn't like it and saying that they're wrong and that the She-Hulk show was the most comic book accurate depiction in the MCU. Most comic book accurate, huh? So, Dan Slap, most comic book accurate. So, the MCU She-Hulk had a different origin story where she was in a car accident and had to rescue her cousin, and his blood got mixed into it with hers, and that's how she got her powers. As opposed to in the comics where she was doing a case against a bunch of gangsters, partially because I believe they had something to do with her mom, or with a client that she's protecting, and she got shot, and Bruce Banner had to give her a blood transfusion. Now, part that the MCU version didn't make sense because they arbitrarily had him wearing the power inhibitor just wouldn't, so Bruce wouldn't turn into the Hulk and save himself. The reason they changed that was because one, they said it didn't fit the vibe of the show. Yeah, that's just a lazy excuse. And also, they didn't want a man to be responsible for saving a woman because that would be, I guess, that'd be considered sexist or something, which is stupid. Um, they also got how She-Hulk feels about her powers incorrectly, as she feels that they're more of a burden because it feels like people are either gonna uh, do favors for her because she's She-Hulk, but not feel anything about her being because she's Jen, or is going to inconvenience her work life because now she's just a freak of nature. Whereas opposed in the comics, She-Hulk liked being She-Hulk because before she didn't get as much attention and couldn't do much before, but now she was tall, strong, beautiful, popular. It feels like if you're like that outcast girl in high school who anybody barely paid attention to, and then you suddenly became popular. That's how kind of like how she feels about She-Hulk. Uh, they ruined Titania. She's basically the character in name only. She doesn't have the backstory. The rivalry between her and She Hulk is basically a joke, virtually non existent. I mean, I've talked about all this in my review. They've ruined the Wrecking Crew. The Wrecking Crew, who's arguably one of the most physically imposing villains. They've taken on multiple characters. Now they're not A-list super villains. They're not your Doctor Doom or your Green Goblin or your Venom or your Magneto or anything like that. But they were still powerhouses and could take on Shield. They've even nearly killed She-Hulk when they in the Secret Wars, which apparently the MCU is going to be adapting. Yeah, they're going to ruin that. Um, yeah, when She Hulk first fought Titania, Titania She Hulk was getting the upper hand, and Titania called for backup from the Wrecking Crew and the Absorbing Man, and they pretty much nearly beat her to death. If she wasn't near invulnerable and had a healing factor, she probably would have died. Uh, oh yeah, I think also Doctor Octopus was also in the skirmish too. Uh, oh, there was another. Yeah, they ruined Planet Hulk and the World War Hulk storyline, but they also we could also extend that blame to Taika Waititi with him hijacking it in Thor Ragnarok, and the Russo brothers uh, butchering his character, trying to include Smart Hulk, who's a lot of fans mistakenly think is Professor Hulk, even though he acts nothing like Professor Hulk, and is a they basically turn him into a massive soy cut beta male, which it could be extended to a lot of characters they did to the show with Man Bull, Caligula, or was it El Aguila, the Abomination, so many other characters. But Dan Slott thinks it's comic accurate because she sleeps around a lot. She breaks the fourth wall. Even though in John Burns and Chris Claremont's run, they were a bit more creative with the humor that She Hulk did, where as opposed to uh, in the MCU, it's just run the mill, look at the camera, and then talk to the audience and give exposition dumps, and which is really lazy and really shows a lack of imagination. And then there's the final episode where She-Hulk goes into full Karen mode and wants to speak to the manager, aka Kevin, and just to all change the ending, which is currently the worst thing the MCU has ever done. To take up a storyline that was poorly built up, but was somewhat built up, and then say, nah, scrap it. So, all in all, Dan Slott is just lying. He's talking out of his butt. And if you try to call him out, he'll block you. I would have done it myself, but he's already blocked me. But I'm fine with that because I've already blocked him too. So, and it's that kind of behavior. I think that in the way that he feels like, oh, I'm going to insult these fans because they don't know what they're talking about, and I worked really, really hard on this, and I don't have to take this nonsense from these fans, these incels. So I feel that inspired a lot of other comic writers to go on social media and insult the fans, which is one of the reasons why I don't support Marvel anymore and why I'm no longer consider myself a fan. Just just don't listen to Dan Slott. No, don't have any. I don't have any respect for him as a writer. I'll catch you mortals later.